This is like my third attempt to record this because I just get so long-winded. I get really excited to tell you this, and so I just go on and on and on, and that's not the point. Tiff and I recently had the opportunity to go to New Orleans for personal reasons, and it's something we've always wanted to do. And it was a beautiful experience. It was fun. It was wonderful. The culture, the food, the architecture, the people, amazing, and the history in particular. I loved. And on one of those days, we had the opportunity to visit the plantation. It's called the Laura Plantation, and this plantation was particularly cool because it has a great deal of history that has been preserved and discovered, which is really exciting. And that's what I want to talk to you a little bit about today is the Laura Plantation. The thing that makes this plantation really interesting is that it's so well preserved. It's just a wonderful example of classic Creole architecture. And it was also a plantation that in 1870 folklorists came through and recorded the stories of the former slaves that lived there about their folk tales and other things. And he wrote those down, and that's where we get the stories of Brer Fox and Brer Rabbit. Disney later used those for Song of the South, and anyone who's ever been on the ride, the name escapes me, the log flume ride there in Disney. Yeah, Brer Rabbit. So kind of cool. But anyway, the point of this is that the original name of the plantation was the Duparc Plantation, and it was a family that for 4 generations owned this plantation. He was a French citizen who was rewarded the plantation for his service in the American Revolution, and it was a sugar cane plantation where they would produce sugar. One of the things is that made it a little different was not only was it a classic Creole architecture, but also not only did the people who run it, they were women. Typically they were widows, their husbands died, and so it was run by the women. And so for 4 generations, the women were the mistresses of the plantation, and they were savvy business folk, and they were very successful and very wealthy. And what happened was it kind of transitioned and became the Laura Plantation. Laura was the last owner of the plantation. And after the war, the plantation system changed. Obviously, the slaves were emancipated, but they rewarded those who lived there. They said, look, if you've lived here and worked here, you can stay. And so many of the people, because they had their homes, and that's where their family where they stayed. And for multi-generations, they stayed. In fact, there was one family, the Brown family, that lived, it was 5 generations that had lived there. And it was really just kind of fascinating to see. But all of this begins, what happened is at the age of 70, Laura wrote down all of her memories in a memoir about the plantation. And that kind of resurfaced in 1993. In 1994, the Marmion family purchased the plantation, in part because it was just such a great example of Creole architecture. It was so well preserved. It had this history. But they also had a kind of a mission to talk about not just the plantation owners, but also the slaves themselves. And it was interesting while we were there, I noticed that they were constantly referred to as the enslaved, not slaves. And I didn't understand the subtle nuance there, but what it is think about, it's a noun and a verb. The noun is, of course, you're a slave. That's something that defines you. But if you're enslaved, it's something that has happened to you. It doesn't define you. It's not who you are. And I appreciated that little subtlety, that they referred to these people as the enslaved, not slaves, because it was simply something that had happened to them as they sought to bring about their humanity. And what happened is the Marmion family read Laura's memoirs and were fascinated by the detail and all of the things that were there, because it brought to light a lot of these people. So the Marmions and several other historians really just kind of dedicated the Laura Plantation to commemorating the lives of the enslaved. And they used the details in Laura's memoirs along with baptismal records, slave purchases and inventory records, parish census, and all these other things that they did. And there was a great deal of work that went into it to recreate the lives of these people. And it was fascinating. It was fascinating to see how they lived, who they were, and how the relationship that was between the enslaved and the plantation owners. And it was just really a fascinating experience. The reason why I bring all this up is because it all started with Laura at the age of 70 writing down her memories. That was enough to prompt the Marmion family to dedicate considerable resources to renovating the property, to investigating, hiring on historians, and they themselves countless, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours to seek out the lives of these people and to bring them to life. And since that time, I've looked, and online you can see comment after comment after comment of people that said, my great-grandpa said that he came from the Laura plantation. I've never seen that picture of my great-grandmother before. And it was just this really, one comment was, I'm now so excited to find out my genealogy because of this. They went and they saw the history and the lineage of these people, and it just stoked their desire to reconnect to the past. And there are two reasons for that. One was obviously the Marmion's dedication, but it all started with Laura writing down her memories of this amazing plantation and these people in her life. And so it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be great. It can simply be something as small as writing down your memories from your childhood. And we never know the impact that will have on future generations. Not only does it allow us to introspect and determine who we are, it shines a light in the past to see where we come from. But amazingly enough, family history allows us to shine a light forward to see where we can go. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So I just wanted to share that with you.